The native relate what they have heard from their fathers, that from over the sea in large boats made of reeds came men so large that a man of common body proportions measured only up to their knees, though he be of good stature. They were once giants here, and the natives say that they don't know from whence they came. Their house were 3 leagues below the anchorage, made of 2 gables with very large beams. Based on my research, it seems that there was once a lost race of red-haired giants who lived across the Americas and may have ended up on Easter Island. Perhaps these giants made their way across the oceans, helped restart civilizations, and built megalithic structures in Peru and Bolivia before moving on to the Polynesian islands like Easter Island. One of the captivating news articles from the late 1800s tells stories about Machu Picchu and its living tribes of giants. Among the discoveries were incomplete skeletons, including a skull from a human who stood over 8 feet tall. This captivating 1544 map of the Americas, created by Sebastian Münster, among its fascinating details, the most intriguing is the inscription of the Latin phrase Regio Gigantum, which means region of giants. Münster was a renowned 16th century German cartographer. There are many old maps and tales of the Patagonian giants, which captivated people during the Age of Exploration. Antonio Pigafetta, chronicler of Ferdinand Magellan's voyage, wrote that the crew encountered extraordinarily tall indigenous people in Patagonia around 1520. These giants were so tall that the tallest among his men only reached their waists. The giants, said to be between 8 and 12 feet tall and dressed in animal skins, became part of the myths spread by European explorers. Maps from the 16th and 17th centuries often depicted Patagonia as a land inhabited by giants. One day we suddenly saw a naked man of giant stature on the shore of the port, dancing, singing, and throwing dust on this head. The Captain General Magellan sent one of our men to the giant so that he might perform the same actions as a sign of peace. Having done that, the man led the giant to an islet where the Captain General was waiting. When the giant was in the Captain General's and our presence, he marveled greatly, and made signs with one finger raised upward, believing that we had came from the sky. He was so tall that we reached only to his waist, and he was well proportioned. Antonio Pigafetta, survivor of Ferdinand Magellan expedition. The discovery of ancient giant footprints and strange giant skulls has indeed sparked curiosity and debate among researchers and enthusiasts alike. Here are some notable examples of ancient giant footprints seen around the world. These discoveries raise intriguing questions about human history and the possibility of larger-than-average humans in ancient times. While some of these claims have been debunked, they continue to fuel the imagination and curiosity of people around the world. In January 2025, this giant skull was unearthed in Peru, captivating the attention of archaeologists and researchers around the globe. Additionally, here are more examples of strange elongated skulls discovered in Paracas, Peru, dating back approximately 2,000 years. Abraham Lincoln. The eyes of that species of extinct giants whose bones fill the mounds of America have gazed on Niagara as ours do now. Contemporary with the whole race of men, and older than the first man, Niagara is strong and fresh today as 10,000 years ago. There are more than 1,500 historical news reports from the late 1700s to the early 1900s that were published in renowned newspapers like Scientific American and the New York Times, detailed discoveries consistent with the existence of giants. These reports describe robust skulls, some large enough to fit over an average man's head, and other skeletal remains of extraordinary size. One intriguing aspect of these reports is the frequent mention of unearthed skeletons that defy conventional human proportions. These findings often included femurs and other bones that, if authentic, would suggest individuals of enormous stature, potentially standing over 7 to 8 feet tall. The robust nature of the skulls, often described as unusually thick and heavy, further fueled speculation about the existence of a race of giants. The articles and reports not only spurred widespread curiosity, but also led to debates within the scientific community regarding their authenticity and significance. The indigenous Paiute people have lived in the Nevada desert for centuries. In the 1800s, a Paiute descendant named Sarah Winnemucca wrote about a battle with a race of giants called the Saidukas. These red-haired giants lived in the mountains and were known for their cannibalistic tendencies. The Paiutes eventually defeated them in a final battle at Lovelock Cave. Archaeological excavations of Lovelock Cave in the early 20th century uncovered numerous artifacts, including large skeletal remains and tools, which some believe lend credence to the Paiute legends. Giants of Sardinia, Italy. In 1901, there were accounts of 4 newly discovered tombs in northern Sardinia, which reportedly contained skeletons measuring over 9 feet long.
My name is Luigi Muscas. I am 53 years old and I live in Polynesia. I've been immersed in the ancient history of the giants of Sardinia ever since I was a little boy. It was handed down to me by my relatives. The first skeleton I ever saw, the first mummy I ever saw, was on a rainy day in the countryside of Polynesia. I was out grazing my father's sheep in the fields near the ancient ruins, when suddenly it started to rain. I got caught in a violent thunderstorm. I looked for a shelter among the ruins to get out of the rain, and I found a small stone doorway leading into a megalithic tomb buried in a hillside. When I crawled inside of it, I found the body of a dead giant. He was huge, more than 10 feet long. He was mummified and well preserved. His skin was the same color as mine. He had all his teeth. One of them was missing. I counted them. There were 32. I wasn't even surprised to find him there. It only confirmed what my relatives had always told me. We were the descendants of the giants.
Concerning the skeletons of giants, I worked in Santa Anastasia, where there is a nuragic archaeological site. I personally excavated 2 skeletons that were more than 10 feet tall. We placed them in the churchyard and left them there because they had to be inspected by the authorities from Cagliari, by Dr. Ugas and other people. I worked there in 1982, 83 and 84. The skeletons were taken to the municipal archive and now they're gone. They disappeared and they made me shut my mouth about it. I took Luigi to the church of Santa Anastasia to show him where I found the skeleton. The outline of the skeleton was still visible in the tomb. But they make you shut your mouth about it. They don't let you say anything. I'm not crazy. I've seen these things.
My name is Giuseppe Pulici. I was born in Sardara. I live in Sardara. And I worked on the excavations of Santa Anastasia in Sardara. I was hired by the municipality of Sardara in 1979, 80 and 81. I was paid by the municipality of Sardara, and I used to work there for 3 or 4 months at a time, and I found skeletons of various dimensions. Some of the skeletons were giants. Their skulls were about 3 or 4 times bigger than ours. We measured the fingers on their hands. They were 6 to 8 inches long, and their legs were extremely long compared to ours. We always carried the bones and the artifacts we found into the church and placed them on the large table. We worked in the early morning until about 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and after we left, someone would come and take everything away. On one occasion, we opened the chamber buried in the nuraghe and discovered the skeleton of a giant that was seated at the table with an enormous plate in front of him. There were even some oyster, mussel, and clamshells that he had been eating still left on the plate. We carried the skeleton out of the nuraghe and placed it on the table in the church. And like usual, someone came during the night and took it away. We were finding so many bones and artifacts in that nuraghe that we were running out of space in the church.
When I was a young man, I worked labor jobs for money. One day, while digging the foundations for a house with my colleague, we found some Roman coins dedicated to Emperor Pius. When we dug deeper, we unearthed a sarcophagus with a large stone lid. The lid was very heavy and difficult to remove. but eventually we managed to lift it off with our picks. When we opened the sarcophagus, we were shocked to find the corpse of a giant. It was dressed in a black garment. Its bones were very long and its head was enormous. It was definitely supernatural, not human. It was incredibly large. We couldn't believe our eyes. I told my other colleagues about it and they started saying, "Uncle Virgilio dug up a corpse. He dug up a giant corpse." They went to tell the priest about it, and the priest came quickly. When he arrived, I was examining the Roman coins with the inscription of Marcus Pius, and the priest said, "I'll take those. Give them to me. I have to take those coins to the regional council in Cagliari." So we asked the priest, what are we supposed to do with the skeleton? And he said, break it into pieces and bury it under the foundation of the house. And that's what we did. We buried it under the foundation. We also found some giants buried near the Albajara Nuraghe. We were working for Natale Puscedo in his vineyards near the Nuraghe. There were several other workers with me. We were using plows and spades because we didn't have tractors in those days. The bones of giants were everywhere in that field. We found more than 20 skeletons of giants buried one on top of the other in cross configurations. So then, all of a sudden, the owner of the vineyard comes and tells us, "Guys, we have to stop digging because the government is intervening." Well, I needed the money more than my colleagues, so I continued to work after they left. When the owner returned, he said, "What are you still doing here?" I said, "Well, I need to work, you know." He said, No, stop. I'll pay you for an extra day, but you have to leave because people from the government are coming. The government inspectors arrived while we were still there. They took pictures of the giant skeletons and examined the entire place, even the walls of the Nuraghe. They sealed up a passageway inside of the Nuraghe. I don't know where it led, but they sealed it up, and they took away the bones of the giants.
Book of Genesis. There were giants in the earth in those days, and also after that, when the sons of God came in unto the daughters of men, and they bare children to them. The same became mighty men which were of old, man of renown. According to historian Kristen Mucher, Spanish stories from the Aztecs tell of a race of giants. In 1519, Tlaxcala leaders presented Hernán Cortés with a massive bone, allegedly from a giant defeated by their ancestors. Bernal Diaz del Castillo, a member of Cortés' expedition, described the leg bone as very thick and the height of an ordinary man, from the hip to the knee. In ancient Egyptian mythology, there are numerous depictions of giants in texts and hieroglyphics. They often depict gods and pharaohs as larger than life, towering over human figures. Were they actual giants, or were these depictions symbolic, representing their divine or authoritative status rather than physical stature? Ancient civilizations like the Egyptians and Sumerians all feature giants in their mythologies and legends. Although these depictions vary across cultures, they share a common fascination with giant beings. The Sumerian civilization is one of the earliest known in human history, also has its share of giant depictions. In their mythology, the Anunnaki are often described as powerful gods who descended from the heavens.